Hello everybody, welcome back to my grass type only first playthrough of Pokemon Sun. If you're new to the channel, I recommend watching from the start, to which I'll leave a link in the description. Otherwise, you can always just read the rules of the run in the description as well. Last time we had just won a battle royal and we was just introduced to Kiawe, the next captain of Akala Island, so in other words, the next trial holder. This sucks, I won't lie, because at this point we only have 2 grass type Pokemon and we're gonna be going against fire type Pokemon. We head out of the dome, go heal, then head to Route 7. We can see that there's a barrier set up in the distance. That means we need to take a left turn here. This guy tells us this is a volcano. By this point I'm just expecting to run into fire-type Pokemon all over the place now. Except that's not exactly the case. As we enter the Well of Volcano Park, we get into a wild battle against a Cubone. This could prove useful if I'm in a bind, as these are probably the best experience givers so far. We battle all trainers in the area and get ourselves Rock Tomb. Of course I'm teaching this to Grovyle. We are, after all, in a fire-type area, where we're going to be attempting a fire-type trial. First off, I won't need workup here. If I use it even once, I'm just making it easy for my opponent. Secondly, Rock-type moves are super effective against fire-type Pokemon. I want to have as much of an advantage as I can possibly get. It's now high time for us to actually get this done. We head to the top of the volcano and Kiawe waits for us there. Let's just say that this is an interesting trial. While all trials have a different approach to them, I thought this one was pretty cool. To give you a brief explanation, you have to carefully watch the dancing Marowak, but not too carefully, the answers are really obvious here. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. This game is definitely made to be more laid back. Trials are really easy to grasp, and you can't really go wrong in them. This trial holds 3 dances, each with a different ending. After choosing the correct option in each of the dances, you get to battle a Pokemon, a trainer, and a totem Pokemon respectively. I make it sound simple, but given the fact that I only have grass-type Pokemon, you might start to guess that things didn't go very smoothly here. The first correct answer pits you against an Alolan Marowak. I actually do something really stupid in this battle, which costs me dearly. I use Rock Tomb on the first turn, and thanks to Marowak's Cursed Body ability, this move is now disabled. That's not all, I get hit with Flame Wheel instantly, bringing my HP down to less than half. The something stupid I did was act impulsively due to the damage I sustained, and so I tried to use my Fighting type Z move on Marowak. But yeah, because Alolan Marowak is part Ghost type, Fighting type moves won't work on it, so I get hit with a second Flame Wheel and Grovyle faints. I thought about resetting here, because let's be honest, if Grovyle doesn't make it, what chance does Cottony have to beat it? Well, I still try. I've done incredibly harder challenges in the past, and if there's something I know for sure, it's that RNG can just decide to be my friend. I go for Stun Spore on the first turn. I know I'm spending 1 turn doing something that can cost me a victory here, but I did this for 2 reasons. First, because I wanted to have Marowak speed, allowing me to move first every turn. And second, for the very obvious reason that Marowak may not be able to move once in a while. Thankfully, Marowak goes for Growl. I then try to proc a critical hit from Razor Leaf, but not only am I unable to do that, this Marowak isn't ground type like its Cantonian variant, so grass type moves won't be effective against it. I get lucky on the second turn again, as Marowak uses Bone Club, only dealing 7 points of damage to us. On the following turn, I finally decide to use Fairy Wind, and wow, it just barely does any damage. This battle can just end at any point, but Marowak uses Tail Whip. Things get even worse on the next turn, as Marowak's ability activates and disables Fairy Wind. Marowak then uses Bone Club again, dealing 10 points of damage this time. This is quite awful. I still have to deplete 1/4 of Marowak's health and my biggest damage dealer is disabled. There's no way I'm getting through with Razor Leaf, so I just decide to go all in and use Growth. I get lucky on the first use, as Marowak gets fully paralyzed. I use Growth again, and Marowak gets fully paralyzed a second time. Because I'm risking way too much here, I use Razor Leaf as an attempt to chip away at Marowak's health until I can get Fairy Wind again. Marowak then uses Bone Club for a 3rd time, only dealing 9 points of damage to Cloud. Finally, Fairy Wind is enabled again and so I use it, and thanks to a 3rd full paralysis from Marowak, I'm actually able to defeat it. I'm just gonna go ahead and say this, if Marowak was this tough, I can't wait to face off against the next challenger. Oh boy. The battle ends and we're completely unable to heal our Pokemon, so on to the second dance we go. The answer to this one is in our face. Literally. So after giving the correct answer, we get into a trainer battle, and this guy has a Magmar. Well, I'm done. There's no point in saying this, but Magmar is faster than Cloud, so it uses Clear Smog and makes short work of us, making this our second loss of the game. I tried this again right after, but I was met with the same end. There's no point in trying this battle over and over, as Magmar can defeat me way too easily and I'll just rack up losses over and over until I get a lucky break. Instead, I do something different. Back when I started playing this game, I had checked online to see which Pokemon I'd be able to catch, but I didn't take into account locations or version exclusives. Because of that, I had no idea that there were other Pokemon that were accessible to me right now. So after checking, I go back to Route 5 and catch myself a Fomantis. We name it Funny Hat and head to Brooklet Hill to find ourselves a Morello. While looking for one, Cloud levels up and wants to learn Poison Powder. Like I said in part 2 of the run, if there's one thing I need, it's to be able to inflict status ailments on my opponents. So I forget Razor Leaf, as it's currently the most useless move I have. Right after this battle, we finally find a Morello. Because this Pokemon keeps on healing itself over and over, I decide to just throw Pokeball after Pokeball to try and catch it, and thankfully we get lucky on our third try. We name it Shrooms, then head on over to the Poké Center to get healed up. We take the opportunity to check Shroom's stats and moves, and if there's ever been a moment when I thought I had found a trump card, this was the moment. Shroom's ability allows it to inflict a status ailment when a Pokemon makes contact with it, much like how Alolan Marowak's ability activates. Then there's its moves. While Shrooms isn't able to cause much damage, it can make an opponent flinch with Astonish, it can reduce the opponent's accuracy with Flash, and it can also heal up with both Moonlight and Mega Drain. There's still one more problem though. Even though I just doubled my team size, I still think that my level is way too low to take on this trial. And as such, I decide I'm going to train for a bit in the well of Volcano Park. After a while, Shrooms reaches level 18 and wants to learn the best move so far, Sleep Powder. There's no way I'm skipping this, so I forget Moonlight to give way to it. I know that Morello evolves into Shiinotic at level 24, so I level it up to 19, then use all 5 rare candies I had saved up to this point, automatically evolving it. With Morello now evolved, I now believe that I stand a chance on this trial, so it's now time to try again. But before I do, let me just say real quick that I took advantage of the fact that when training to try and increase my Pokemon's affection through Pokemon Refresh. I'm saying this because it's going to come in handy very soon. This time Marowak is a breeze. I use Sleep Powder whenever it's awake, then proceed to hit with Astonish until it gets disabled, then use a combination of Sleep Powder and Flash, switching to Astonish as soon as it gets enabled again. This allows me to win this battle without getting hit even once. On to the second battle. I get lucky as soon as the battle starts. Magmar is faster than Shrooms, sure, but thanks to that, its ability activates and Magmar falls asleep, which is the best scenario. We proceed to lower its accuracy as much as possible. Unfortunately, I then get unlucky again, as I try using Sleep Powder again but miss over and over, as if Flash worked backwards and I get wiped out by Clear Smog. I switch over to Grovyle because of Rock Tomb, and it proves to be the right call, as the move deals massive damage to it. While it's not enough for a one-shot, Magmar is also unable to defeat me, so I switch over to Mega Drain because I'm sure to deplete its already low HP and we can finally proceed to the last phase. Unfortunately, we're yet again unable to heal our Pokemon, which means that Shrooms won't be able to cause any status ailments and we'll need to do this differently. After the third dance finishes, we get to see the Totem Pokemon, and I like how all options are correct. I mean, I picked the Totem Pokemon option, but I'm pretty sure any other would have been fine. The battle finally starts, and this Pokemon gets a special defense stat boost. If all goes according to plan, we shouldn't need to worry about its special defense though. I sent out Funny Hat first, and my idea was to use Fury Cutter in the hopes that I would hit 2 to 3 times so I could deal a bit of damage to Salazzle, hopefully finishing it off with Grovyle's Rock Tomb. It turns out that Salazzle is way too fast, and while it does use Toxic on the first turn, it goes for Flame Burst on the second and Funny Hat is down. Not only that, but now there's a Salandit next to it too, so I'll have to deal with 2 Pokemon. I also seem to just forget how Pokemon works sometimes, so I try poisoning Salazzle as soon as I send Cloud into battle, which obviously just cost me another Pokemon. I was expecting to be defeated by fire, and here I am being destroyed by fire and poison. I send out Grovyle and take out Salandit using Rock Tomb, but Salazzle isn't having it and turns me to ashes with Flame Burst. Another loss on the counter, and now I have no idea what to do. I mean, I could optimize this battle and reach Salazzle with Shrooms still alive, but what will that accomplish? Is my only way out just to train more and brute force it? Won't that just make the rest of the game way too easy? I have too many questions on my mind, but I do have to decide on what to do. So I decide to stop and try on the following night, giving me some time to think it over. I ultimately chose to just try again. Training would just result in me being too strong for future trials, which would cause me to just blitz through the game, and that wouldn't be fun. On a side note, while that's true, I'll soon change my mind about this, but we'll get there soon enough. I get back to the top of the volcano and I'm met with the most pleasant surprise I could hope for. It seems like reaching the totem battle is a checkpoint in this trial, so you can just bypass the first 2 battles and go fully healed into the last one. At this point, I take what I can get. My first attempt ends really quickly, as Shrooms gets poisoned at the very start, and as an attempt to get it to live a bit longer and try to lower Salazzle's accuracy later, I switch over to Grovyle, I defeat Salandit while Salazzle is still asleep, but that's not good enough and I get wiped out very quickly. One thing to note is that Grovyle survived 1 hit thanks to the affection level. This will become incredibly broken later. My second attempt sees me getting some progress. I noticed that if Grovyle is able to hit Rock Tomb and live to see another turn, I can potentially defeat Salazzle, leaving just Salandit, which shouldn't be too hard to defeat. I am still defeated on this attempt, but I believe I can now do it. On my very next attempt, I deliberately put Grovyle as the first Pokemon. The reason for this was very simple. On turn 1, only Salazzle is present, which means that if I do get hit, I'll only get hit once, and I'll probably be able to defeat it as soon as Salandit makes its appearance. However, Salazzle finds another way to stop me, as it uses Torment. This makes me unable to use the same move twice in a row. For this reason, because I know I'd be unable to defeat Salazzle on the next turn, I use my Z move on Salandit in the hopes that I can either deal a good amount of damage or deal a critical blow and defeat it. Although that doesn't happen, Salazzle is also unable to defeat me, and Salandit uses Taunt. This is actually perfect, because I have no intentions of using anything that can cause status ailments at this point. Thanks to this turn, I'm finally able to defeat Salazzle with a second Rock Tomb, and Salandit then chooses to use Poison Gas. This allows me to use another move, and because Rock Tomb was my last used move, I now have to choose between Brick Break, Mega Drain or Leaf Blade. Mega Drain isn't an option. Brick Break surely wouldn't defeat it, so I try my luck at a critical hit from Leaf Blade. And I get pleasantly surprised to learn that even though Leaf Blade doesn't crit, I'm still able to defeat Salandit. This battle is actually ridiculous. After all that happened, I end up learning that the only Pokemon I needed for this was actually my starter Pokemon. It's kind of ironic, really. Also, I have to point this out, but you should definitely subscribe to my channel for more of this kind of content. No, but really, what I meant to say was that I definitely wasn't expecting this trial to end so soon. I was prepared to spend a few hours here, trying again and again until I got a lucky attempt. And sure enough, I was kinda lucky, sure. But if I had to compare this battle to many other battles I had in, say, my Magic Out solo run, I'd say this was actually really easy. I did have a very effective move to help me out, but still, things could have just gone wrong. But enough with this, we now need to look and move forward. I take the opportunity after the battle to improve my Pokemon's affection even more, and after I do, Kiawe awards us the Firium Z, which we will most definitely never use. Maybe. But that's not all. Kiawe also gives us 10 Quick Balls, which we will 100% never use. And access to Charizard? Easy access to past areas? Yes sir, sign me in. Moving on, we can finally head to Route 8, and as soon as we do, we talk to a girl who tells us that Pokebeans can be collected in Pokepelago. I'll be honest, this was heartbreaking. My friend asked me not to use this throughout this run, and at this point, I thought the main use of this feature was to get additional Pokemon. And although I now know that's not the only thing you can do, cutting my Pokebean income definitely hurt my affection progress. Cutting my access to Pokepelago also makes me unable to catch another Grass-type Pokemon, Tropius. I know, many people would see this as a total win, but I actually really like Tropius, and I would have loved to have it around. Even more so when it could have learned moves like Earthquake, Outrage, Air Slash or even Brutal Swing, which none of my Pokemon are able to learn right now. Soon after this, someone stops us on our tracks, and a face from the past emerges. That's right, Colress from the Generation 5 sequels shows up to talk about Pokemon potential. He gives us the TM for Flame Charge and tells us it could prove useful on the next trial. I was already guessing, since the previous trials were Water and Fire type, but the next one will definitely be the Grass type trial. I'll be fine, right? We soon enter a trainer battle, and the trainer sends out a Bounsweet, and after checking the Pokédex, we're bound to find it soon. Sweet! Fomantis learns Leaf Blade after leveling up on one of the trainer battles, and we end up reaching a Pokécenter. After healing and collecting our daily Pokébeans, we enter a hotel room and Gladion's just standing there, really happy to see us too. After making sure we defeat all trainers on this route, we go battle the Ace trainer at the very start of it. And on this battle, Shrooms levels up and wants to learn Confuse Ray. I've said this enough times by now, but we definitely need all status ailments we can get right now. So I replaced Mega Drain for it, making Shrooms almost completely unable to deal damage, but able to inflict just about any status ailment on its opponents, as well as being able to reduce their accuracy. Unfortunately, this trainer's next Pokemon, Fearow, just obliterates me as soon as it's sent in. All my Pokemon faint and it's another loss for me, but I did come out stronger from it thanks to learning Confuse Ray. I'm quite confident I can get a good chunk of the game done right now with my current team, so next stop, Lush Jungle. Mallow waits for us as soon as we step into the jungle, and her trial involves collecting 4 different ingredients from 4 different areas in here. She gives us a forage bag and sends us on our way, telling us that using Stoutland here is vital to find the ingredients. We start the trial by going left, and almost immediately find the first ingredient. One thing I quickly notice is how much damage a simple Parasect is doing to me. I know Fury Cutter is a bug type move, so it makes sense it hurts Grovyle quite a bit, but I am 10 levels higher. I'm not super worried, but the totem Pokemon is already starting to cast a shadow. Speaking of shadows, the second item makes a Pokemon jump from a tree to attack you. And I know it goes by really quick, but you can kinda see that its shadow corresponds to the correct Pokemon that appears in battle. If you've already understood something about me, it's that I love these small details, so I'll make sure to talk about this some more when the time comes. After defeating Fomantis, we collect the Mago Berry, and Mallow tells us what we still need to collect. So, I've said before that I'm enjoying this game a lot, but there's one small thing that's been bothering me a bit, and it's how much this game holds your hand. Every step of the way, the game is almost teaching you how to do every single thing, and it can, at times, feel a little bit overwhelming. But don't get me wrong, this game has been nothing but fun so far. Even though I've lost a few times, those losses don't feel unfair at all. They happened for 2 reasons. First, because I have no idea what I'm facing until I face it. And second, because when I do face off against certain opponents, the types matter a lot. And if I don't have coverage for said type, I am likely to lose. Although it's never certain, like the first Marowak on Kiawe's trial. We enter the third area, and again, you can just tell how much the game grabs your hand. See, I usually like to read the signs, because sometimes you can actually run into some useful information in a game. But here, it just blatantly tells you what to look for, completely devoiding this whole area of the fun of searching for the item. You already have Stoutland, you can sniff items out, so just telling you where to look for the item makes this whole trial pointless. Right now, all 4 items could have fallen from the sky and it would have had the same impact as looking for them, which would have been none. I won't lie, some trials are pretty good, and we'll go through them as we go, but some of them just feel like watching a 10-minute long music video where 5 minutes are just a black screen with no sound. Anyway, we find our third item, defeat another Fomantis, and Mallow tells us that only 1 ingredient remains. We head for the 4th and last area, and I like that you have to use 2 different white Pokemon to find the item here. Not that it's hard or anything, far from it, but I think having to use multiple Pokemon for a puzzle is fun. After collecting the Miracle Seed, we're finally ready to rumble. We go back to the first area of the jungle, then Kiawe and Lana appear, which somehow reminded me of Cilan, Chili and Cress from Pokemon Black and White. Here I get a little bit confused for a second. Mallow asks us to pound the ingredients by pressing A, so I press A. Another text box appears and tells us to keep pressing A, so I press A again. This goes on for like 6 or 7 times, until I realized what the game actually meant was for me to mash A and not just press it. My English is probably not good enough to understand this the first time around, but in my personal point of view, maybe writing that as press A repeatedly or just mash A would have been better. Which raises the question, if you've watched this far and you've played the game yourself, were you able to get this the first time Mallow asked you to do this, or did it also take you a few seconds to get there? After understanding what the point was, we pound, crush, grind, and turn this weird mixture to goo. The aroma that fills the air finally reveals the totem Pokemon for this area, and it's none other than Lurantis. As soon as I see it, I was like, okay, this is a pure grass type Pokemon, this should be easier than a fire poison type. At the start of the battle, it gets a buff to its speed, which can definitely be bad, even more so if it knows Fury Cutter. Let's just hope that it doesn't. Oh wow, it's even worse than I thought. First turn, Lurantis goes for X-Scissor and it destroys me. If it wasn't for Grovyle's affection, I would have been done for. Lurantis is currently 8 levels lower than Grovyle, and it's still hit like a train. I don't know about you, but this is probably going to be tough. I use my Fighting type Z move and it only deals just about 1/3 of Lurantis' health. This kind of damage output sucks. I need something that deals much more damage if I'm going to defeat this thing. The turn ends and Lurantis calls for help, and the cast form appears? I was confused. I was genuinely not understanding what the link was. Trust me, it's bad. You'll see. On turn 2, I negate all damage from X Scissor because Affection is overpowered, then I use Brick Break and it brings Lurantis down to about half health. I'm unfortunately defeated right after by Castform's Headbutt. My next plan of action was to call Shrooms into battle and try to use Sleep Powder, then try to slowly lower both Lurantis and Castform's accuracy stats so I could defeat them. And then Lurantis just pops a Synthesis and heals back to almost full health. Not only that, Lurantis has the Leaf Guard ability, so Sleep Powder doesn't do anything to it. Oh boy, things are about to take a turn for the worst, I just know it. On the second turn, I noticed that because Shrooms is part Fairy type, X Scissor is neutral against it, so it doesn't deal as much damage as it does on Grovyle, and that could be useful. Castform attacks me and Shroom's ability activates, putting it to sleep. It was good too because I used Confuse Ray on Lurantis, so both of them are now inflicted with a status ailment. I'm able to use Flash 3 times on Lurantis, which makes it miss a move I don't think I've ever seen, Solar Blade. And rightfully so, as it was introduced in Generation 7. Back when I was playing, this went by quite fast, so I didn't even notice that Lurantis had a Power Herb, which bypasses the charging turn of the move, allowing it to use it immediately, and you'll soon understand why I'm mentioning this. Castform ends up defeating Shrooms, and I'm now left with Cloud and Funny Hat. Lurantis' accuracy is currently at -3, but my last 2 Pokemon are quite weak, so even if I somehow manage to avoid every attack from Lurantis, Castform is there, and while it might not seem so, it packs quite a punch. When I started this battle, I had no idea what ability Lurantis had, so I tried inflicting whatever status ailment I could with Cloud, only to have it fail every time, and so I lose another Pokemon without being able to do anything at all. I sent Funny Hat into battle, but because it's still a first stage Pokemon and it's also a pure Grass type, a single use of X Scissor from Lurantis puts an end to this attempt. I switch Shrooms to the first slot of the party and try again. My thoughts were based on trying to lower Lurantis' accuracy as much as possible from the get-go so I could defeat it without being hit. As soon as we go back into Lush Jungle, Mallow gives us some advice. While she does make some valid points, I'm playing at night, so I shouldn't have to worry about the sunlight making certain moves activate early or healing more than normal. I didn't do this on purpose either, playing at night was pretty much the only time I could play anyway, so it turned out to be good. I also decide to listen to what Mallow says, and I teach Acrobatics to Grovyle again, replacing Rock Tomb. Except this is where what I talked about 2 minutes ago comes into play. I hadn't noticed that Lurantis had an item, so by using this move against it, it won't deal as much damage as I'm expecting to, but I am getting ahead of myself. I restart the battle and confuse Lurantis on the first turn, only for it to call Trumbeak this time. At this point, I thought that calling Trumbeak was way worse than Castform, and it was confirmed when it used Block, reducing my health by a lot. Thankfully, Shroom's ability activated and Trumbeak fell asleep. I'm only able to use Flash twice until Trumbeak wakes up and defeats Shrooms. I send out Grovyle in hopes of using Acrobatics and ending this quickly. And although Grovyle avoids X Scissor thanks to the affection level, I notice Acrobatics seems to be doing less damage than Brick Break. Thankfully, I'm also able to avoid Trumbeak's attack right after. Not only that, because Lurantis' health was close to half, I decide to use my Z move, and while Lurantis is faster than Grovyle, I avoid its move, making it 3 times in a row. 2 things to note here. If this move had been a critical hit, I would have most likely won this battle. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And then there's the next turn. Grovyle doesn't avoid Lurantis' move and doesn't tough it out either. Needless to say, Cloud is slower than Lurantis, so it heals before I can do anything. And on the next turn, I finally get to see what Solar Blade looks like, and it definitely feels very strong. This time I was able to understand that it used an item before using the move, which allows me to know that was the reason Acrobatics wasn't doing as much damage as it was supposed to. Needless to say, Funny Hat is demolished by Trumbeak's Block. On the very next attempt, Lurantis uses Solar Blade very early on, which means that it doesn't have an item anymore, so after trying to reduce its accuracy as much as possible until Shrooms fainted, I send out Grovyle and go for Acrobatics. Now of course, it does deal a bit more damage, but I was expecting a bit more if I'm being honest. In the move's description, it says that the move will deal massive damage if the opponent isn't holding an item. I'm only able to reduce its health to half before Grovyle also faints. No point in talking about Cloud and Funny Hat, at this point they're just here for show. Right now I'm just thinking about any kind of strategy I could employ to win this battle. I end up just forgetting Brick Break and learning Rock Tomb, all because of Trumbeak. I seem to be having a lot of trouble dealing with it, while Castform has been less of a threat so far. It may not be much, but using the Z move proves to be more efficient. Also, I can't reliably hope that Lurantis will use Solar Blade every time at the start of a battle. On the following attempt, thanks to a combination of Confuse Ray, Sleep Powder and a bit of luck, I'm able to lower Lurantis' accuracy to -3. Thanks to that, Lurantis also used and missed Solar Blade, so as I send Grovyle, I immediately start dealing with Trumbeak with Rock Tomb. I get confused after the first turn, but I switch out to Funny Hat so I can get rid of the confusion. Funny Hat faints and I send Grovyle again, and thanks to a miss from Lurantis, I'm able to rid myself of Trumbeak this time. One less thing to worry about. On the next turn, I avoid a move and go for Acrobatics. This time Lurantis calls for a Cast Form. Right now I'm feeling confident, I might just win this. I go for Acrobatics again, avoid yet another attack from Lurantis and hit, reducing its health even more. One more move and Lurantis faints, then I would just need to worry about weak little Cast Form. Oh, did I say weak? Yeah, about that. Seems like Cast Form waited until the very last moment to reveal its trump card. It uses Sunny Day, transforming itself into its sunny form. This unfortunately also improves Lurantis' HP recovery with Synthesis, so on the next turn, since it's faster than Grovyle, that's exactly what it does, almost negating all damage it sustained up to this point. But that's not even everything. Cast Form then unleashes a Weather Ball and makes me disappear into nothingness. Yet another loss. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I tried once more after that, this time learning my highest powered normal type move, in hopes to use my Z move and defeat Lurantis, but even that isn't enough, so after these consecutive losses, I figure I need to train. It sucks, but I'll have to just go into the grass and battle Pokemon until I'm strong enough to tank better and deal more damage. Just as soon as I start training, Cloud levels up and wants to learn Giga Drain. I wasn't sure if I wanted to learn it, but it turns out that my whole team can learn Toxic, which is way better than conventional Poison. And since Lurantis can't be inflicted with anything other than Confusion, I might as well just learn it over Poison Powder. I take the opportunity to improve all of my Pokemon's affection levels so I can proc all kinds of affection cuties during battle. Not long after, Grovyle also levels up and wants to learn Slam, so I decide to replace Brick Break. Look, I know its accuracy isn't the greatest, but it's the strongest normal type move I have at my disposition right now, so whatever increases my damage is good. Also, if it comes down to it, I can always relearn Brick Break later. Since I now have a new way to deal more damage, I go try the trial once more, just in case. Except I lose the battle without even being able to use my Z move. I'm not satisfied, so I go again, and this time I'm able to use the move, except, while it does deal more damage, it's still not enough to make a really big difference. Well, I can't help it. I have to train if I'm going to make it through, otherwise I'll just be racking in loss after loss after loss. After a while, Cloud eventually wants to learn the move Charm. I think I'm not going to be using Growth much, so I decide to get rid of that. It may not seem like much, but Charm could actually prove to be useful here. If I somehow manage to lower Lurantis' attack enough, I might just be able to make it. I train until Shrooms levels up to 30, then go try again. I know I should just train until I'm confident I can win, but if I can help it, I would love to be able not to overlevel too much. The battle starts and I'm able to flash Lurantis twice before Shrooms faints. After that, I send out Cloud. I get lucky on the first turn and avoid getting hit from Lurantis' attack, then go for Charm. I then get confused by Trumbeak and end up hitting myself on the following turn, but I manage to sneak in a last Charm before falling. Before sending in Grovyle, I get an idea. I send out Funny Hat in an attempt to chip away at Lurantis' health by using Fury Cutter. Unfortunately, I miss on my first attempt, only hitting on the second turn. And although I only hit once, it does relatively good damage, which only means that if I had hit twice, the damage would have been much better. Time to send Grovyle. Because Lurantis used Solar Blade to make Funny Hat faint, I start by using my Z move against Trumbeak. A bad idea? I know, but I didn't have Rock Tomb with me, and I needed to get rid of Trumbeak on turn 1. Also, while Cast Form can use Sunny Day and Transform, Trumbeak can deal more damage from the get-go. I defeat Trumbeak with Breakneck Blitz, and thanks to the damage I dealt with Funny Hat, Lurantis decides to heal. I use Acrobatics and notice I can defeat Lurantis in 3 hits, maybe even 2 if it crits. I'm able to avoid X-Scissor and Lurantis then calls for a Cast Form. Lurantis' HP is still over half, but because of Grovyle's level, I can now outspeed it. And since I'm pretty sure it won't heal this turn, I can safely go for Acrobatics again, then outspeed and defeat it on turn 3. Except that's not exactly what happens. Lurantis uses Synthesis and Cast Form uses Headbutt for a critical hit. It hurts, but nothing's lost yet. Next turn starts, I go for Acrobatics and... oh, never mind. Everything's lost now. Cast Form transforms and vaporizes me on the following turn. But I can feel that I'm really close though, I just have to try again. Unfortunately, on this attempt, I'm only able to flash Lurantis once, but on the bright side, I'm finally able to lower its attack to its minimum of -6 with Cloud before it faints. This time, instead of sending Funny Hat, I go for Grovyle instead. I want to capitalize on the fact that Lurantis is confused to try and damage it as much as possible. But again, things don't exactly go my way, as Lurantis breaks free from its confusion, but thankfully decides to heal instead of attacking. We now find ourselves on the same situation as before, except I have one more Pokemon and Lurantis is even weaker than before. Turn 1, I use Acrobatics and avoid an X-Scissor from Lurantis. Perfect. Lurantis calls for Cast Form, which I thought was ideal considering the damage Trumbeak could cause from the start. I go for Acrobatics again, and this time Lurantis doesn't heal and goes for X-Scissor again. Although it hits, I can now tank it really well. Cast Form also attacks me, and while it does some damage, we know we can tank some more. I finally defeat Lurantis for the very first time on the next turn, leaving me with just Cast Form to defeat. It goes for Headbutt and leaves me with 31 HP. And if you've seen the length of this video, you probably know what's about to happen. I have a massive brain fart. My mind tells me to go for Mega Drain because if Cast Form uses Headbutt and crits on the next turn, I'm 90% sure I'll faint from it. So yeah, that's exactly what I do. And what do you know? Cast Form goes for Sunny Day. Oh boy. I should have seen this coming, but I was more worried about healing than dealing damage. I'm now on an even worse situation than before. If on the last turn I was worried about an eventual crit, right now I'm worried about a guaranteed loss. You would think I would pick Slam here because it has the highest power, right? Well, this is the time I have to confess something. I actually misread the description for Acrobatics. Here, let me play this back from part 2. Not only does it give me a bit more coverage, its power is increased if the opponent isn't holding an item. So yeah, I only read it again after writing this part of the script, which means I played an entire game using a move I was convinced worked one way when it was actually the opposite. This obviously means that I chose to use Acrobatics against Cast Form, because I was convinced its attack would be more than enough to defeat it. Except because I was the one holding an item, its power was lower than Slam, so it ends up surviving and destroys both Grovyle and Funny Hat. As a side note to all of this, I can't believe that I had a brain fart while playing, and then another one even bigger that lasted all throughout the game. Sometimes I wonder if I really even know how to play Pokemon. This is beyond ironic. Well, oblivious me from the past had enough of losing, so I decided to stop playing for the night. Except I had another idea. See, I still have 2 Pokemon that can evolve, and while one of them can only evolve through the use of a stone, Funny Hat the Fomantis can evolve at level 34, but only during daylight. I mean, I am playing on an emulator, so I could always just change the time of day and go train, but that takes away all the fun. If I did that, I might even be tempted to do it to get more Pokebins as well, so I decided not to. I had to wait a few days until I got a free morning to train, but when I did, I made sure to level Fomantis all the way up to 34. After evolving, I was now more than ready to take on this battle. Just about an hour of training is enough to get Funny Hat to evolve. In retrospective, maybe Funny Pants would have been a better name. It makes less sense now. But oh well, this is how my team looks right now. You'll notice just how high Grovyle's level is now. I actually had to go deposit Grovyle in the PC midway through training because it was getting way too strong. I also ended up forgetting Astonish with Shrooms, just because I can't reliably make my opponents flinch over and over, and not only that, if I can restore my health and keep on inflicting status ailments and lower accuracy, that would be the best approach for me right now. Also, Funny Hat became a beast after evolving. Not only did it learn a new grass type move with 90 power and 100 accuracy, its attack stat rose up so much that it's now 19 points over my second Pokemon, which is Grovyle with 74. It also learned Slash, and that could prove to be really useful later, especially given its high critical ratio. Cloud is now unfortunately the weakest link of the party, but on the other hand, it does have Charm, and that's very helpful. Before we head for Lush Jungle again, there's one last thing I need to do. I need to save and wait until nighttime again. I don't want to give Lurantis even more of an advantage. Okay, time for what you've been waiting for a while now. The battle starts and we send out Shrooms. Right as we start the battle, I choose to use Sleep Powder instead of Confuse Ray. Thanks to this, I get confused on turn 2, hit myself, and I'm only able to make Trumbeak sleep on turn 3 after losing just about half of my health. Because Trumbeak also connected with Screech, I'm only able to confuse Lurantis, but I wasn't able to reduce its accuracy. I send Cloud next, and while Trumbeak wakes up and hits me, I'm still able to reduce Lurantis' attack to -4 before fainting. It's now freshly evolved Funny Hat's turn. And as I go for Fury Cutter on turn 1, wow! Look, I know it was a critical hit, but this move gets stronger every turn. Funny Hat really did turn into a beast after evolving. I was expecting to see some damage, I won't lie, but that much? That was crazy! While I get confused by Trumbeak at the end of the turn and Lurantis heals itself on the following turn, I'm still able to hit with Fury Cutter and the damage is phenomenal. Unfortunately, Funny Hat misses on the third attempt and ends up fainting. It's alright though, because remember, Grovyle is now faster than Lurantis, so as soon as I send it, I use Breakneck Blitz, immediately defeating it. I now only need to defeat Trumbeak. However, it confuses me. It's not over yet, I can still lose if I get unlucky. Yet I still decide to gamble and try to use Slam for a possible one-shot. And while I do hit, it's not enough to defeat it. I also get hit with Block, which does a lot of damage. If I hit myself on the next turn and I'm hit again, this is most likely to add another loss to the counter. Fortunately, Grovyle gets over its confusion and hits for a last acrobatics. And I finally triumph over this totem Pokemon. If anyone told me back when I started playing this game that I'd have more trouble getting past a Grass-type Pokemon than a Fire-type one, I'd laugh in their face. But now, I'm just glad it's over. And while that's true, something's still bugging me, something deep inside my mind. If the Fire and Grass trials were this tough, what's gonna happen once I need to face against Ice, Poison, Bug or Flying-type Pokemon? I know I've said more than once now that this game is on the easier side, and I stand by what I said. But with a full Grass-type team, it can get difficult at times. Anyway, Mallow congratulates us on clearing all 3 trials of Akala Island and gives us the Gracium Z, which is the one crystal we're most probably going to use in the future. After praising the sun in a way even Solera of Astora would shed a tear to, the 3 of them eventually leave and Kukui shows up. He then gives us the TM for Smart Strike. After doing so, he tells us that we should get to the Dimensional Research Lab with extreme speed. No mistaking it, this is Kukui. We exit the jungle and Kukui congratulates us before telling us to catch some Grass-type Pokemon for Olivia's Kahuna battle, who uses Rock-type Pokemon. This is very good news, and it's actually what we're going to do right now. See, in the Lush Jungle, there's another Pokemon we can catch, Bounsweet. We just couldn't catch it before because we were in the trial, but now that it's over, we can welcome our newest member, Boots. And this is going to be it for this part, my friends. Yes, it was longer than the previous ones, but there was a lot to talk about. And while I could have just cut this down into 2 parts as well, it wouldn't feel right to have 2 parts be about a single trial each, which is why I opted to make it a bit bigger. While it doesn't seem like it, a lot happened, and we're now very close to complete the second island and move on to the third one. But enough about this, I don't want to spoil it too much for you. If you haven't yet, I would really appreciate if you left a like, or even better, if you subscribe to the channel. It's completely free, and while it might not look like it, it helps the channel tremendously. Not only that, it also definitely makes my day to go see my sub count and see it increased. Even if it's just by 1, every sub counts. With that said, however, I will see you all very soon in the next video. My name's Grovyle. Thanks for watching.